Official, you guys. They're now using the Charlie Kirk death to crack down on, quote-unquote, radical leftist movements. I have the article here, right here, from Newsmax. It's titled, Stephen Miller, Trump Will Smash Vast Domestic Terror Movement. Alright, so, I'm going to read the part at the end here. So this comes after Stephen Miller talked about how he needs to crack down on quote-unquote violent terrorist groups. Critics pounced, arguing the language is overly broad and risks being used to target legitimate protest movements or civic organizations. Civil liberties groups warned characterizing activist activity as terrorism without clear evidence could pose constitutional challenges. Like they care about that. At the time, supporters of Miller's stance have echoed his concern about what they see as escalating harassment and intimidation campaigns against public figures and institutions. They argue that stronger enforcement mechanisms are needed to deter politically motivated violence. Yeah, bullshit. Okay. Obviously, we know which side of the aisle they're going to be cracking down on, though, and it ain't their own. So, anyways, while Miller positioned his remarks as a continuation of Kirk's legacy, the extent to which they will translate into official policy remains unclear. For now, his statement adds to the broader debate about political violence, free speech, and the government's role in regulating the activities of activist groups across the ideological spectrum. So, there you go. I'm going to link the article in the description if you haven't found it yourself. But yes, this is basically going to be, I'm not going to say a nuclear disaster because I don't want to sound alarmist, but it might be. It might very well be a nuclear disaster for the left. And I was going to write, I wrote a script previously for this video that I'm making now, and it was basically simply about how in the past I have made some political predictions that are correct based upon cynicism mostly, and how those turn out to be right. And now they're going to use Charlie Death's Kirk as a way to crush the left, and the left needs to get stronger in order to combat the rising of the right. To me, it's always been weird how this is supposed to work. When I was young, I would listen to the abortion debate, and I would think one side thinks that they're literally murdering children, and the other side thinks that they're taking the bodily autonomy of women away, equivalent to that of forcibly harvesting their organs. And yet these people aren't at each other's throats. They're not killing each other in the streets. And I thought that was a form of cowardness. I guess it might be. But it was also just a simplistic belief in the liberal institutions. But the thing is, though, is that the right has always been more willing to use violence than the left. And I know that's rich because the shooter may well be on the left. We're not sure, but he probably is. He dated a trans woman, after all. That's a pretty good sign that he's on the left. A right-wing person can watch transgender porn, but to actually date a trans woman, I think you would actually have to be a bit on the left side of the spectrum. So there's that. But throughout history, and I'm talking long history here, I'm talking about, probably all the way to the founding of this country, but I guess afterwards too, slavery, Jim Crow, the skinheads of the 80s and 90s, you go to the hate organizations, you go to the crazy people, well maybe not so crazy, but you go to the bunker people, the preppers, who are armed to the teeth and prepared for the end of the world and worst case scenario and the collapse of civilization. Guess what those people mostly are? On the right. And there's no surveys that I looked at to indicate this. I just knew about it from reading the comments underneath the Canadian Preppers YouTube channel. They're pretty much always right-wing. Of course, the comment section is not necessarily reflective of the actual audience, but still, pretty much all the things that I have seen about the preppers come from right-wingers, not left-wingers. And, the situation to the leftist is simple, like, we should not have to worry about civilization collapsing unless we have, stupid leaders in charge that are going to kill us all. And it's just like, yeah, what are you going to do about it? Like, we know how this works. You're not going to get rid of them with protests. You're just not. Okay? Throughout history. And I'm talking about all types of revolutions, right? Both on the right-ish wing and the left wing, right? Like the American Revolution, right? The French Revolution, right? Not to count the Soviet Union, the Russian Revolution, the Chinese Revolution, the Vietnamese Revolution. They all succeeded because of massive amounts of violence. We have tricked ourselves in the Western world, probably due to, the success of, the civil rights and the gay rights and the women's rights movement, that peaceful protests is the way that things ultimately work out. Things ultimately work out to the most civil thing. I'm sorry, that is not how that works, historically speaking. Okay? The reason why we were able to get all those rights in the first place is because the people, the Enlightenment people, that probably would have hated, women, gays, trans, blacks, and whatnot, wrote rules, and we were able to appeal to those rules and convince the public that, hey, we should have rights, and that's it. But the right probably never fully agreed with those rules, or at least their interpretation of those rules are so radically different as to not allow you anything. And the thing is that they've always been there. People keep saying the death of Charlie Kirk is wrong. But the thing is that with people like Charlie Kirk, and that there's a bunch of motherfuckers out there that think like Charlie Kirk. Okay? I know some of them, and I've seen some of them online, okay? With people like that, they will eventually come after you. And the problem is that these are the people, right? With guns. The Nazis organized themselves with guns, right? Or at least they bought a bunch of them. But the left never seemed to really care much. Liberals, leftists never really seemed to care about gathering guns. In fact, they were the anti-gun faction. This is stupid. Because all it did... First of all, we're never going to get rid of guns in this country. There's too many guns. Okay? And it's in the Second Amendment that we can own guns. Okay? Even if you have a broad interpretation of gun restrictions, we're still going to be able to have pistols. There's no way at the Supreme Court level, liberal or conservative, are they going to completely ban gun usage for civilians. It's just not going to happen. So they're always going to have weapons. And all you're doing with this anti-gun shit of wanting to prevent school shootings or suicide or what the fuck ever is you're giving it to the right. The right is going to buy guns and they're going to be the ones to use them. Okay? And in the event of an actual civil war, which newsflash, right? If we're battling in the political arena, there's always been a chance, especially with the pendulum swinging back and forth in this country, that the right wing is going to get the upper hand again. There's been times of progress and times of backlash. And the left never prepared for it. They don't own guns like conservatives do. Of course, there was a spike in gun ownership. Spike. Maybe it wasn't that much of a spike. After 2019, I think it was. But to be honest, the left should have been preparing way before that. Way before that. Like, in the early 2000s. Hell, in like the 90s. Or, hell, even further. They should have always had guns. Always. Always. However they could have gotten it, they should have always have gotten guns. And of course, I know what you're thinking, like, they were weak back then. What the left advocated for, they were weak and they couldn't get guns because then they would, like, seek to try to oppress them. But here's the thing. Leftist groups did do that. The Black Panthers, they were armed to the teeth. Okay? And yeah, they tried to ban guns. But who cares? You got ways to work around those laws anyways. Like, here's the thing. These motherfuckers are going to come after you anyways. You can't play civility politics forever. Eventually, they're going to try to get the jump on you. Okay? Even without the election of Donald Trump, they would have just waited and picked someone else to take his spot. Donald Trump, by existing, okay, started a movement. And here's the thing. These sentiments, these Trumpian sentiments, have always been with the right. The leftists know this, even though they didn't act like it, but they've always been there. They've always been there. And that's why, when I was watching Donald Trump back in 2015, speaking about how he's going to run for president, I knew, oh crap, this guy actually has a chance of winning. The pollsters at the time were like, you know, oh, he has no chance of winning. But I'm like, no. I knew Donald Trump had a chance for winning. That was one of my big predictions. That and ISIS was that Donald Trump could very much well win the presidency and has a very good shot at it. And the reason for that is simple. I've heard these views before. Okay? I've heard some of them in my house. I've heard some of them online, and I've heard some of them on talk radio, which has like millions of listeners all across the country. And Donald Trump was just tapping into the id of America, which was laying down the foundation probably with the Tea Party. Okay? And leftists didn't start arming then. They should have armed before, but they didn't start arming them. These people watched a Nazi resurgence, and they didn't wait to buy guns until, like, 2019. And they just never armed up. They always thought that civility politics would win out. And this is incredibly stupid of them. I am ashamed that my side of the political aisle is incredibly stupid. And maybe that's why I voted for Trump. I voted for Trump maybe partly because I just couldn't believe he was that bad of a guy. And the reason why I couldn't believe that he was not that bad of a guy was because people weren't fucking acting like it. Like, where are the guns? Why did you wait to 2019 to start buying guns? Where are the riots? Huh? Like, where are the organized militia groups? You know, the right has them. Do we? We probably will need them soon. Especially with Charlie Kirk's death now. And that's the thing, it's just like, to me, like, they never acted like Donald Trump was a fascist. And this isn't just me with my ignorant and dumbass opinions firing off. Norman Finkelstein, in one of his videos, said the same thing too. He was like, you know, if Trump is a fascist, why don't the Democrats go into hiding? The truth is that they're stupid, but they were so establishment at the time that they probably believed that Trump wasn't going to go after them. But he will, especially with Charlie Kirk's death now. Charlie Kirk's death is just the excuse that Trump's been waiting for, to spring on people. If Trump is even in charge anyways, who knows? Maybe Peter Thiel is calling the shots. Maybe people like Stephen Miller are calling the shots, and Trump is just a figurehead at this point. I kind of believe that, Trump is having strokes and stuff like that, so that makes sense. But still, like, I guess there was that one woman who freaked out, and now I understand why she did, and I think her freak out is justified. But the left as a whole never really, there never seemed to be a panic. They just seem to have, like, accepted it. Maybe not, it's not the correct word. Accepted it, but I don't know. Maybe, I mean, here's the thing. I can imagine the response to this being, well, they couldn't get guns because they would have been cracked down on by the right. And if that's the case, then we're going to lose. Because we're the ones that fear them. But they don't fear us. And that, in of itself, would be a winning asymmetry for them. So, I'll leave you at that. Thanks for watching.